the best officers for skill training. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me recently about skill training and what is the best skill to use. So we're going to go through this video and explain to you what all of the different officers have unique for that skill training experience. Because as we know, for example here, Sergeant Spanner, he was good back in the day. He's absolutely useless now, but he is still relevant because he has some skills that can be used. We're going to be going through this list and I'm going to give you an example from each officer on what their best skill is if you don't want to use the officer itself, but you do think about using the skill training. So with that being said, we're going to start off here with Sergeant Spanner. Now, the first skill we're going to be mentioning, and the only skill we're going to be mentioning, is the Building Blaster, which is a damage intensity of 25% to fortifications. So if you are an artillery, you would end up training this on someone like Futurus or I, or pretty much anyone if you don't currently have those officers. But if you are going to attack a base and you want to deal damage to a base, this is a good option, especially if you have multiple Howies, because for example, sure, it would be better to have, say, like a 20% damage intensity, because it means, you know, you're going to be doing extra damage to the units as well as the base. But let's just say you have a base damaging RT that's focused only on that, and the rest of your artillery are basically focused on killing units. You're not going to want to be wasting that sort of 20% or 30% damages. You're going to want to be using it on the unit killing officers. So that puts this here a great skill for it. Moving on to the next one, we've got Angel of Light. Obviously, she is a Gen 1 officer, but unfortunately, she's probably the best officer to have on a tanking infantry. So again, you're not realistically going to be wanting, you're going to be wanting to use her as a main officer. But if you're not, like myself, I'm currently not using her, the best skill realistically is going to be either the damage resist of 15%, or if you are using it on an infantry to tank a base, the blast mitigation. This is also a very good skill when attacking a base that has howitzers, rocket launchers, or anything like that inside that deal blast damage. This is a big reduction to that sort of damage input. Now, the next officer here, we have got War Machine. He has a damage intensity of 15%, which is really nice, but sometimes you've already got better damage skills on your units and you can only use one offensive skill, which leaves this skill here, the reduction on load time. Because it's a special skill, you could also put this on with an offensive skill, so therefore this is also a very good skill. It's basically 10% extra damage. So sure, this skill is 5% better than this skill, but 9 times out of 10, there are better damage skills out there for the offensive section, so therefore this is a decent special skill to have. Moving on to here, I personally have used either the blast mitigation, or I would say use the damage intensity. Again, it depends how you're using it. These are going to be the best skill training for this officer here, which is tip of the spear. Don't worry about the firepower. It's not worth it. Moving on to the next one here, we have got Lady Justice. Now, for Lady Justice, the critical strike rate is really good if you're putting it onto a light tank. But as of recent, there are new officers that are out that offer slightly better than this. But this is one of the best critical strike rates for the free-to-play team. So again, if you are building a light tank, this is going to be what you want. If you're building something like a super heavy or just another unit that's in the field and you want some protection, this here is going to be the best skill because it is 20% damage resist, whereas most are only 15% damage resist. Both of these are good skills depending whether you want an offensive or a defensive unit. Again, don't worry about the firepower. Moving on to Valkyrie. Valkyrie's skill, she has a couple of really good skills here, if I'm honest. I mean, not that one. She has 2 good special skills. The first one being the helicopter has a chance of 40% to reduce the damage resist by 20%, and then it also will do an extra 200% coefficient. This is only, I believe, because of the awakened skill. So I think the second part of this only works if you have it as a whole unit. So in general, a 40% chance to deal 20% less, okay, or you're guaranteed to do 15%, and especially if you're on a heli, you'll get an extra 5% load time. This skill here works on any units, by the way, guys. Although it has a picture, this is one of the very rare moments where you need to read the text as well as look at the pictures. So as we know, anywhere that has an image, for example, guys, I mean, most people will know this, but anywhere that has an image means that it only works on that unit. So, for example, increases the firepower of this officer's tank and helicopters, hence why it's got the tank and helicopters image. if you tried putting this skill on an infantry, it's not going to work. It doesn't work on infantry. So over here, when you see this, you've got the picture of the tank hunter or the helicopter. You would assume it only works on that, but that's not the case. It's only the second part. So increases the damage intensity of this officer's troop by 15%, full stop. If it's leading a tank hunter or helicopter troop, it reduces load time by 5%. So the way this works is you get 15% damage intensity for any unit, but if it's on a helicopter or a tank hunter, you get an extra 5% load speed. So with that being said, this skill is very, very good for putting on pretty much any unit that you want to deal extra damage. It's an extra 15% damage intensity skill that can go pair and pair with an offensive skill, because as we know, this is a special, so you could put a special and an offensive on, so you'll be able to get double the damage output. Moving on to I is a very good officer for dealing damage to bases, so the best skill he has realistically is this skill here. It's the casting speed of 12.5%, which is 1 second. So this knocks off 1 second onto basically any skill that is going out, which means you just do extra damage much quicker. You get that skill shot off a lot faster. The other skills are, you know, they're nothing special. I wouldn't really worry about them. If you're going to skill train any skill from him, like you're not going to use him and you want to skill train, this is going to be the one you want to be skill training, but it is only available to go onto other artillery, which is why most people put this on their flame with Stinger, because obviously it just gets that extra AoE damage out 1 second faster. Moving on to Lady Liberty. Now, obviously, the one thing when it comes to exclusive lounge officers, some people do like to go and get a lot of their singular skills because they are a lot stronger, but obviously it still takes time to get them. So over here, firepower, not really relevant. This skill here, obviously, this officer's artillery troop has a 25% chance to silence the enemy's ground force troop for 2 seconds and can be triggered every 4 seconds. It's a decent skill. You know, when it works, it's amazing because you basically guarantee you're going to get your skill shot off 2 seconds before the enemy. So by that time, your skill shot's gone off, your second skill shot from your aid's gone off, then their skill shot goes off. If this triggers, you win the fight. It's guaranteed. GG's. So when it comes to this, I would probably say this is the better skill. It increases the damage intensity of this officer's artillery troop by 35% if its current HP is lower than that of the target it attacks. So this is, in general, a pretty decent skill. Obviously, it offers just a lot more damage, but your unit has to have lower HP than the unit you're attacking. So if you're attacking tanks and stuff, 100% is going to be a better option. But obviously, if you're attacking other artillery, it's going to be very, hit and miss. So overall, Liberty is an amazing officer, but individually, her skills can seem a bit, maybe not the best. If you're going to go for an exclusive lounge singular officer skill, I don't think Lady Liberty is actually one you realistically want to go for. There are better out there when it comes to, officer individual skills. As a whole collective group, Lady Liberty is by far one of the best officers on the game. Moving on, we have got Golden Eagle. Now, Golden Eagle has a damage intensity of 20% for tanks and helicopters. This is pretty decent, 20%, but it's only 20% to a certain group within the game. 20% on any unit is always going to be a much more preferable option. Here we have got an increased chance of landing a critical strike from its normal attacks by 10%. Again, this is really good, but we have already seen that Lady Justice has 15%, so that would be slightly better. This skill here is really good. It has a damage intensity buff of 15%, and it also gives the base damage resist 10%. So if you are looking for a damage resist skill, this is a very, very good one to have because it does offer the extra base resist as well if you are obviously putting that unit into your base. Moving on to Red Heat. Now, Red Heat honestly is an absolutely amazing officer, especially when it comes to her individual skills. So her first one here, damage intensity of the artillery troop by 25%. It's already one of the biggest damage intensity skills that you can use for skill training, and it's 25%. The second one here, damage coefficient of burning damage by 50%. This again is one of the best burning coefficients on the game of 50%. Really, really good, but it's going to be a very unique skill to train, so most people wouldn't really go for this one, even though it is a very strong skill. And then finally, probably the most popular one is increases the officer skill boost of this troop by 40%. Now, don't get me wrong, this is obviously probably going to be the best one to use overall. It's 40%. Sure, it's only 40% to the skill, but 40% to the skill is still going to be more damage overall, I believe, than 25% to everything on that unit. Obviously, we've done a damage test recently. The majority of your damage comes from your skill shots, so this is a very, very good one to be putting on, and it's what most people would use when it comes to a skill training of a singular unit from Red Heat. Moving on, we have got Warrior Whiz now, and honestly, this officer and the next one as well, Bomb Princess, these two are only available if you was part of the game like 2.5 years ago when they done an event, so I'm pretty sure any new player now cannot get these, unfortunately. But if you do have these available and you are thinking of trying to get skill training for it, honestly, there is nothing super impressive with them, okay? They're okay. You got this one here for the critical strike rate of 10%. It's okay, but again, it's actually coinciding with her, where this skill here, you get damage resist, but an extra 4% critical strike rate if you pair this skill with this skill here. So they're kind of a double pairer. So you can get a total of 14%, which again, 14% is okay, but we already have 15% from just that one skill earlier on from Lady Justice on her own. So again, not really 100% worth it, but the option is there if you really, really do need it. Maybe you're running multiple light tanks. You've got like 3 light tanks in your setup, then it would be a good idea. Finally, guys, this skill here, which is the increases the damage intensity of this officer's troop by 15% and increases damage intensity by an extra 4.5 if the troop is at least 1 map grid away, which it's always 1 map grid away because you can't be in the same grid as your unit. So I don't really understand this. It's basically always at 19.5%. Unless I'm wrong here and I'm not understanding it correctly, I'm pretty sure that this here, guys, is always at basically 19%. Obviously, please let me know down below. I'd really appreciate you guys letting me know how this wording is, because if your unit is in 1 grid away from it is the closest an enemy unit can be, it's going to be dealing that damage. Now, the only instance I would think is if this is on a light tank, for example, and your light tank is shooting a bomber that's bombing you, that bomber is on your grid, right? So you would only get 15% from that situation. But in every other situation on the entire game, you're going to be getting the 19.5%. So this could be a good skill. It's a 19.5% damage intensity instead of the average 15% that you get from most. Moving on, we have got Bomb Princess. Again, honestly, there just isn't any skills that are really worth getting from her. I wouldn't bother getting any skills. If anything, maybe this one here, the damage intensity of 15%. But when the enemy's HP falls below 25%, the damage intensity is further of 5%. So you'll get, eventually you'll get 20%. You know, it's not really worth it, but this would be the best skill probably to have over all of these 3 options. Moving on, we have got Stinger. Now, Stinger is an absolutely amazing officer. He offers 20% damage intensity, which is a great option. We said the average is 15. Although now that we're getting into sort of Gen 4s and Gen 5 officers, 20% is kind of becoming the standard. So eventually we'll start seeing the 25s and 30% soon. With that being said, guys, 20%, this is a really good skill to train. Absolutely amazing. If you are working on, say, like an ATG, you know, you're not looking to get this officer, but again, you just want a skill training, this could be a really good skill if the unit you're putting it on is 100% never leaving your base. As soon as it leaves your base, you're not getting any of this here. So as long as it is in garrison 24/7, this skill will be better than this skill. But if you plan on using your skill out in the field as well as in your base, this skill here will be your better option. Moving on to the Bear. The Bear is a pretty good infantry officer. Now, again, depending on how you're using it, maybe you'd want to use this on your infantry if you're skill training your infantry. But overall, this is by far the best skill on the game when it comes to balanced skills, guys. So whenever you see a 10% damage intensity, 10% damage resist buff as a balanced skill, it's 9 times out of 10 you're going to want to be getting that skill on skill training, unless, of course, you're using the officer. But this is by far the best balanced skill on the game. So yeah, grab this and use this because you can definitely get extra damage resist or extra damage for a unit because you can put a balanced skill with any other sort of skill in the game. Moving on, we have got another exclusive lounger officer. Now, when it comes to exclusive lounge, again, depending on how you want to set your unit up, if you want defense, this is a very good one because you get, you know, 30% damage resist. It can stack up to 10 times, so you can get up to 30% damage resist. This skill is okay. Normal boost 25%, fire and axe 50%. It's okay, but I would say if you're going to go for damage, this is the better one. You are going to be be getting an extra 30% damage intensity. So yeah, if you're going to skill train any skill from this officer here, this is going to be your best option available. Moving on to Arbitrator. Arbitrator is obviously an amazingly strong officer. If you're going for any of the skill training here, the only one you really need to worry about is this one here. When this officer's troop is attacked by troops garrisoned in the enemy base, it increases the damage resist by 32%. This is going to be your best option when it comes to Arbitrator. Moving on to the new infantry officer. Now, the new infantry officer, obviously, we've just done a video on this. All the skills are now slowly but surely becoming better in these new Gen 5 officers. I would say, personally speaking, you know, 25% damage intensity to tanks and helicopters is good, but it's only going to be to a select variety. So overall, this skill here, because it's a balanced skill, especially going on an infantry, this could be used on pretty much any, whether it be offensive or defensive unit. It's going to work really, really well. So I think, if anything, this is probably going to be the best skill, the balanced skill. Balanced skills are very rare to find that are good, and this is a pretty good balanced skill. So this one would probably be the best option available. Again, this one is okay, but it's nothing amazing, if I'm honest with you. Moving on to the new tanking officer. Now, this tank officer is very strong. Obviously, it gives the 32% resist when tanking garrison troops, which is amazing. Don't get me wrong, absolutely amazing. But, guys, there is this skill here. Whenever this officer's troop enters combat, it increases the damage resist of this officer's troop and all nearby allied troops within 2 map grids by 20% for 20 seconds, which means if you get this with other players also getting this, you could stack up the damage resist of a tanking unit exponentially. Like, it can go crazy numbers. So this is going to be your best skill if you're looking just for skill training. But if you're selfish and you know, want to just get more for yourself and yourself only, this one here would also be the best option technically. Moving on, we have got White Wolf. Now, White Wolf, hers is pretty standard. It's just damage intensity of 15%. It's going to be your best option overall. You could theoretically do the bunker resist, but again, there's better out there as well. She's obviously a very old Gen 1 officer, but damage intensity is probably going to be the one you use out of all of them. Over here, guys, we have got Antonina. Now, obviously, Antonina is a very, still to this day, although she's Gen 1, one of the better officers on the game that people still use to this day because she offers the really good, strong 1 grid map extra range. So, with that being said, if you are garrisoned in your base and you know the unit's not leaving, ATG, for example, even though the ATG does come out, but the ATG primarily, you know, stays in the base. You don't normally bring it out during a defense or anything like that. This skill would be the better option. But if you are using it for all-rounders, you're going to want to use the officer skill boost at 25%. Just overall, really, really good officer. Moving on to Percy. Percy has a garrison, again, 25%. If you're using this on an ATG that's not leaving your base, this is a very, very good skill. If you are training something like an infantry unit, this is also a great skill here. Blast mitigation buff of 50%. Really, really good, honestly. Infantry for tanking, this is the skill you're going to want to be training. So either of these two, depending on whether you're on an offense or defensive unit. Here we have got Winter Huntsman. Now, Winter Huntsman, guys, in my honest opinion, he's a good officer to use this skill here. The increases the damage resist. And the reason it's a good officer to get such an easy damage resist skill is because you can get him from the Conquest store, and where you're only trying to get one skill, this honestly is not a bad skill. It's 15%, it's nothing crazy, but as we know, you can only pair one offensive and then either a special if it's the leading officer or a balanced, and there's not many good balanced skills out there. For example, here, balance skill 5% HP, 15% firepower, not worth it. The damage resist is a much better skill overall. Moving on to Eruptor. Eruptor's only necessary skill here is going to be the damage intensity to fortifications. Pretty good. Moving on, we have got Steel Fighter. Steel Fighter's best option. I mean, unfortunately, the blast mitigation's only for tanks, so it's not really worth it. Damage resist 8%, HP 15%, not really worth it. So if you're going to get any skill for training, it would be the 15% damage intensity if you're going to get anything at all. Moving on, we have got Iron Bastion. Now, Iron Bastion has a damage intensity of 25% when attacking fortifications, so the same as Eruptor and Spanner. This is going to be a good option if you don't have either of the other two. HP of 35%. Now, guys, if you are using, for example, Thorn Countess as a defense officer in your base to get a base shield, even if you don't have this skill leveled up and it is level 1, you're still getting 22.5%. It's the highest HP buff to give your unit more HP, which means your base shield would technically get a little bit stronger. This is going to be the skill you want. Overall, though, guys, if I'm 100% honest with you, this is one of the most useless officers on the game. Anyone who awakened him, I mean, GG's. Yeah, I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but I think he's one of the most useless officers in the game. Moving on, going on to Berserker Bear, which honestly is probably my second most hated officer on the game. He just doesn't really offer anything good. 30% HP, nothing. Firepower, 30%, nothing. You get 30% chance to trigger a 1-second skill reduction. Cool. Bit of a waste of a skill, though, because there's a lot better special skills out there to be using, and as you know, you can only have one special skill. So overall, I think this officer, again, kind of F tier, U tier. Does a U tier exist, guys? Yeah, useless. This officer, it says Gen 1, but this came out with the other Gen 3 officers. So I remember when he came out, we was expecting him to be really strong, because at that time, all of the officers were getting stronger and stronger at the time, like they do over the years. I think he was Gen 3 when he first came out. He came out with the other Gen 3 officers, but was instantly made Gen 1 because he's very useless. Damage resist skill, though, 15%. Guys, honestly, it's a perfectly fine skill to have. I think I might even have it on my account. I'm not too sure. But yeah, damage intensity, 15%. That's the only good skill to have, if I'm honest with you. Moving on, we have got Whipcracker. Whipcracker has a really nice skill here. 40% skill damage reduction, 75% chance, which means it normally does go off quite a lot, and it can be triggered every 4 seconds. So yeah, again, really, really good skill, but there are better defensive skills out there. But if you don't have any other options, it's not a bad skill. I myself have had this skill, or I have the skill. I don't currently use it because I don't have a tank or anything, because it is only available if you're using it on a tank of some sort. So again, not the best skill out there, but I do use it on my alt account. So yeah, not too bad. Moving on, we have got Everbloom. Everbloom is obviously the best tanking defense officer for infantry when like tanking a base. She has a really good, obviously, skill here for reduction of skill resilience. It's okay. HP and blast mitigation. This would be the better option if you wanted to technically give this skill to someone else. But if I'm honest with you, if you're going to use any of these skills, they would be used for tanking a base, and realistically speaking, you're going to want to use her because they're only available on infantry. It's not like you can skill train. I mean, this one can go on anything, so technically you could use this on a tank. So from an average point of view, this would be the better skill to have. But I mean, overall, this is obviously the strongest skill she has, but it's only for infantry. And if you're using it on an infantry, probably going to want to be using her in general. Moving on to Rapier. Rapier is a very strong officer. It's it's firepower. You don't need it, guys. This skill here is a really, really, really good skill. It increases normal attack boost of 15% and critical strike rate of 20%. You're probably going to be using him if you're using the skill, but you could theoretically maybe use this skill onto, say, like an ATG for the normal attack boost. It's one of those things. You're probably going to be using this officer. He is one of the best officers for the light tank, so it's hard to really say whether or not it's going to be good for skill training, because most people are going to be using it. But I have used this for my skill training on my ATG before, because I didn't have anything else available at the time, but more and better stuff has come out since. Moving on to Uncle. Now, Uncle's a very unique one because he has two very good skills. He has a normal attack resilience buff of 30% and normal attack resilience buff of 10% to your base. Then he also has this skill here, which is by far the better one, but it's a chance skill. So it's better if it goes off, but if it doesn't go off, it could be a little bit bad. But basically, you can get up to 20% damage resist and 20% damage intensity for this over the period of a minimum of 8 seconds. So I think that's really, really good. A really nice skill to have. This is probably the best skill if you're going to skill train him. Moving on, this is a brand new officer. I haven't really had too much. Obviously, I've not done any testing on that with her yet, but she has a damage intensity buff. We do need to make this bigger. Here we go. Damage intensity buff of 20% and damage intensity while in the field of an extra 10%. So if you're in the field, you get 30%. If you're in your base, you get 20%. Already very, very good skill. Moving on to the next one here. Normal attack boost of 30% and officer skill boost of 20%. This is just as good. This is an insanely strong skill. Absolutely amazing. 30% and 20%. And then finally, we've got 25% firepower, 25% HP. It's one of the, you know, the stronger balance skills, but it's still not as good as the damage resist 10%, damage intensity 10%. That is still a better skill than this, but on terms of firepower HP, this is one of the strongest ones we've got for that sector. With this being said, guys, 30% normal attack boost and 20% officer skill boost versus 20% damage, 30% damage. It's a close one. It's a real close one. It depends on the unit. If you're using something like, say, a light tank, then I feel like, I don't know. This is, honestly, I'm actually stuck here. For the first time, I'm stuck on which skill is better. Maybe you guys can let me know down in the comments, what do you think's better out of Lady Shadow's 2 new skills? Because for me, they are neck and neck. I think overall, the damage intensity one will be slightly better because, as we know, damage intensity is pure damage for everything, whereas this is only in certain situations, whether it's the normal attack or the skill buff. But I don't know. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say, guys. So yeah, let me know down below, what do you think? Moving on to Futurus. Futurus has a couple of nice skills here. Obviously, he offers damage intensity of 20%, which is good, and then obviously increases by an extra 5 if you're on a rocket launcher. So if you're a rocket launcher main, it's a really nice skill to have. Over here, we have got damage intensity to bases of 32%, but again, he's going to be the one you use, if anything, when attacking a base. And he also offers a skill boost buff of 15%, offers a skill resilience buff of 15%. It's a nice, okay balanced skill, nothing super crazy. So overall, this skill here is probably going to be the best option available. Moving on to Iron Cavalier. Now, Iron Cavalier, guys, is going to be probably the damage resist of 32% if you're wanting to train it onto a sort of tank unit. Overall average, I would say this is going to be the best skill when it comes to skill training, because if you are wanting this skill, for example, to tank a base with, this officer is the best officer to be tanking a base with, so you're going to want to use him in that situation. So if you're not using him for that situation, let's say you tank bases with infantry, you're not going to want this officer, then you'd want to use this on, say, your Howies and stuff. So this here is personally going to be my better option for you to use. The damage intensity of 20% is probably going to be the better option. Moving on, we have got here Frostfire. Frostfire is one of the newer officers. He is still Gen 4 though, but really strong officer. So he offers a 20% damage intensity, and then he also offers an extra 10% when in the field, so very similar to the Lady Shadow we just saw. Again, really nice skill. He also offers 15% skill boost and 15% skill resilience, which again is really nice. And finally, he offers a 75% chance to reduce the damage taken from skill shots by 50%. So it's a pretty nice skill. I don't think it's worth the training. If you're going to train any skill, it's probably going to be this one here, if I'm honest with you. Moving on to Guardian of Truth. Now, Guardian of Truth, obviously you can buy him with statues, or you can use normal statues to unlock him. Honestly, I haven't done much testing when it comes to pen buff. Obviously, some people say that this is worth it, but also this here, damage resist, as we know, damage resist is good. The problem with pen buff is it's only if it pens, you're going to get 40%, and I don't know what the percentage of, like, if you're attacking something, I don't know if there's like an average percentage of how much you pen, but this is guaranteed to be you're always having the protection, whereas this is only if you pen, you then do an extra 40% damage. So I'm not amazing when it comes to tank stuff, guys, if I'm honest with you. As you know, I am an artillery main. I do have a tank alt account, but it's more just, it feels rallies and stuff. Like, I'm a little bit understanding of tanks, but as we know, when it comes to tanks, guys, it's normal shots, and obviously you do have obviously the skill damages as well, but with the normal shots of your tank, it's so RNG. You could hit back-to-back crits. You could hit back-to-back normal hits. You could also do back-to-back really weak hits because your firing accuracy was low. You could do back-to-back really good hits because your firing accuracy was high. There's so much RNG based with tanks that it's really hard to do testing, and you'd need to do a lot of like control tests as well as to get the averages of everything. It takes a long time, so I've never really done too much when it comes to tanks. I am obviously more an artillery main. Moving on here, we have got a 15% damage intensity, which again, on average, pretty good skill. Honestly, the rest are not really worth it. This goes back to the same pen buff. I don't think it's anything amazing, but the damage intensity of 15% is good. Moving on to Bloody Mary, the only skill worth really using is this here, the damage intensity of 15%. Saber has a really nice one, damage intensity of 30% on units that have less than 50% 20%. It's okay. So I think, you know, you got the damage intensity of 20% if attacking tanks. Guys, if I'm honest with you, Saber is a good, very good officer, but 90% of Saber's goodness comes from his awakened skill and his main tactical skill, and you can't train them. He's like Liberte. It's an officer you need as a whole, not singular skills, unfortunately. So personally, I don't really know what I can advise from here. I wouldn't spend officer statues, exclusive lounge statues, just to get any one singular one of these officers skills, if I'm honest with you. Over here we have really good skills. So for example, if you're a tank main, this is going to be a good skill. 20% damage resist, absolutely amazing when it comes to putting it on your super heavy, for example. That's the best situation. You could obviously use here the damage intensity of 35% when garrisoned in your base. This would also be a good skill if you're putting it on an ATG officer and you only want to get one skill from him. Moving on, we have got Thorn. Thorn has an okay skill here, which is the skill resilience of 30%. You could use this if on a tanking, but she does offer one of the higher damage intensity buffs of 20%. So this would be the better skill overall to use if you're going to use anything. Vox has a really nice skill here to train, which is the damage intensity of 32% when garrisoned. This is obviously really good if you're putting it on an ATG. Overall, that's going to be probably the only option really available if you're going to be using her as skill training. Professor Pain, guys, is going to be his final skill, offers a skill boost of 30%. It's one of the higher and better officer skill boosts on the game. So again, if you're going to go for one skill for him, this is by far the best option available. For Lonesome Star, the shield here of 500, 30% chance of doing it every 8 seconds. It's an okay skill. It's decent. It's nothing special or amazing. We do have the HP and the blast mitigation, which it's okay. And then this one here, it's not really worth using. If I'm honest with you guys, this one's okay, but I personally wouldn't really go for either of them because they are better in both scenarios. But, you know, you could use either the special or the protection one if you really wanted to. But again, there are better options available. Moving on here, we have got the Lord of Order. Now, Lord of Order has a really nice skill here, which is a damage intensity of 20%. And then when attacking an enemy's shield, it increases the troops' damage intensity by an extra 20%. Now, what a lot of people might actually misunderstand about this is a lot of people think that if you're attacking a unit that has a shield officer, you're going to do 20% extra damage all the time. It's not the case. You only deal 20% extra damage when that shield is on. For the 3 to 4, 5 seconds or 4 seconds, because most shields only activate for 4 seconds, but 9 times out of 10 they get depleted before that 4 seconds. So that's only while it's active. So while you see the blue shield line of their shield that's active and available, you have 20%. The moment that shield's gone, you lose the 20%. So it's a good skill and probably the best skill to have. I'm just letting you know how it works, that's all. And honestly, the other one's not really worth getting because you can get this from many other officers. Just definitely not worth it, if I'm honest with you. So yeah, if you're going to get any skill from him, this is the one you're going to want to get. Moving on to Svalinn. Svalinn has a nice damage resist skill if you're going to tank a base. This will be a really good one to go with your super heavy. If you are looking for a sort of offensive skill, this here is a very good skill, especially on something like the light tank, for example, where the main normal attack matters the most. This is a very, very good skill to have. Next, we have Maestro, guys. Maestro has a really nice skill here, which is one of the ones we mentioned earlier. It is the damage intensity, damage resist of 10%. By far, in my personal opinion, it's the best option available. Yeah, the normal attack boost and the damage, it's an okay skill on like an ATG, but this is the one you're going to want to be using. Next up here, guys, we have got Steel Phoenix. Now, as we know, Steel Phoenix is a very strong light tank officer, but does still work on other units. Over here, we have the normal attack boost and a low time reduction 10%. This is a good skill, especially when it comes to crit, guys. Crit damage buff and crit chance rate of 15%. This is going to be your better option if you are only going for one skill only. Crit just absolutely explodes the amount of damage output you can do. Moving on to Madame Havoc. Madame Havoc is a very, very strong officer, guys. Honestly, if you're tanking a base and you want a super heavy skill, this is the one you want. 30% damage resist. Bear in mind, it is only for 10 seconds, but that first 10 seconds is what matters the most. So 30% damage resist is honestly absolutely amazing. But if you are, for example, not using a tank, you want a howitzer, then you're going to want to go for the damage intensity of 20%. So again, defense, defensive kind of officer, you're going to want this, and then offensive officer, you're going to want this. So guys, for Madam Vindicta, she has a really nice skill here for damage intensity of 15% with an extra 20% on top if you're in the field, 35% total, which is a really good skill. These skills kind of coincide with each other when it comes to dealing skill damage, but they're both a special, and you can only use one special per officer you're going on. So realistically speaking, from a viewpoint, same as Lady Liberty, you're going to kind of want them together as this officer as a whole, but not necessarily singular on their own. So this would probably be the better an option available. Moving on to Margarita. Margarita probably got the third and final skill here when it comes to the damage intensity of 10% for both damage intensity and damage resist. This is going to be the skill you kind of want to use when it comes to skill training. The others aren't necessarily that important. For skill training wise, this is going to be your better option. And finally, guys, we have got Desert Jaeger. Now, Desert Jaeger, when it comes to skill training, you're going to want to be using this one here. Low time reduction of 10% and critical strike rate of 30%. This is obviously going to be something you'd use on your light tank, but it's going to be better than any of the other options available. This is going to be the strongest one out of the three. But again, this officer is extremely strong, and you're probably going to want to get him anyway. But he's exclusive lounge. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a bit of a longer one, but a lot of people were saying to me that, you know, they have to go back and watch old videos from, you know, me talking about an officer to see what one's worth using skill training for. So I thought, why not go through and just give you guys a heads up on all of the officers on what skill training is good or not. As always, guys, I'd appreciate anyone who can like and share the video. We're so close to 5,000 subscribers. Guys, thank you so much for being so beautiful and amazing. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.